All right, team. Good morning and welcome to the November HR webinar. I'm Carol Bowman from the Beginning Teacher Development and Support team and thrilled to be your hostess today. Our webinars aim to keep you informed about critical human resources updates impacting education. Remember, this session is recorded and will be available on the CMS intranet. For questions, utilize the chat box, and our experts will address them after each topic. Check the team's Q&A for a handy reference handout containing all the links mentioned during the presentation. Let's dive into the latest updates. Today's agenda is as follows. We'll begin with updates from talent acquisition, covering student teaching updates and other recent developments. Next, we'll delve into the licensure segment, expect insights on the 5-year renewal requirements, along with comprehensive details on both in-state and out-of-state initial license requirements. Our CMS Teaching Residency team will then take the stage to share the latest updates and happenings within the CMS Teaching Residency program. Moving on, the Beginning Teacher Development and Support team will share valuable information regarding the BTSP program. Teacher Leader Pathway will follow, shedding light on the requalification process for the TLP talent pool and the upcoming Cohort 11. Lastly, the Employment and Performance team will provide insights into conflict resolution procedures, the significance of the performance counseling letter, details about the corrective action form, and Power BI. During the webinar, we ask that you adhere to these webinar norms. Minimize outside distractions, use the Q&A feature to ask questions, and be attentive. First, we have Carla Standback from the Talent Acquisition Team.
Thank you, Carol. This is Carla Chambers Standback representing our CMS Talent Acquisition Team. To start, we'd like to welcome our newest recruiter, Nautica Butler. Nautica will be our recruiter for our student teacher process as well as elementary education teachers. Nautica is originally from Jacksonville, North Carolina, and moved to Charlotte in 2018. Nautica holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from East Carolina University and a master's degree in elementary education from Western Governors University. She is currently pursuing a master's in business administration from UNC Wilmington. With 5 years of experience in the classroom, she brings a unique perspective to her role as a recruiter, understanding the importance of finding the right educators to shape the future. Nautica's journey from teaching to recruiting has been driven by a desire to continue to impact education, albeit from a different angle. We are excited to have her join our team. Next up, we are in the process of sending the UNC student teaching placement request for next year. If you receive an email with the request, the deadline to confirm placement is November the 22nd. That's next week. Nautica, who is our new student teacher recruiter, will send a request to your school. The email subject line will be response needed student teaching placement request. So please be on the lookout for the email from Nautica regarding placements. Next slide. Thank you. And it's almost that time again. Our international J1 teacher hiring will begin in January and February of 2024. Our team will begin contacting school leaders about scheduling virtual interview sessions to help fill your vacancies with qualified teachers for the 24-25 school year. Currently, CMS has 222 international teachers, and this year We are looking to add over 100 new J1 international teachers to join the district through our partnership with our J1 sponsored companies, which includes Global Teaching Partners or GTP, Participate, EPI, ITES, Blend, and TPG. If you have any questions about international teachers and or sponsorship, please contact Moista Harlan, Manager of Talent Acquisition, at the email address here on your screen. The Years of Service campaign is talent acquisition's way of highlighting our wonderful teachers while showcasing the retention that we have in CMS. We will be highlighting different teachers weekly to thank them for their longevity within CMS and education, and for educating our scholars throughout the years. Pictured here is Miss Brenda Cofield of West Charlotte High School, who has 20 plus years of service. And we have been on the road. Our team has been very busy on the road and online, participating in a variety of events this fall. We are scheduled to participate in about 50 hiring events this fall, and we are currently planning our spring recruitment calendar. We will continue to source and refer available candidates to you. Thank you. And if you have any questions for our team, please connect with us at our recruiting email. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carla. Do we have any questions for talent acquisitions?
There are no questions at this time.
Thank you. Next, we have Virginia Gutierrez from Licensure.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. I'm Virginia Gutierrez. I'm the manager for Licensure. It's a pleasure speaking to you this morning. I have a few updates. The first one I want to talk to you about is the license renewal requirements, and this is for licenses, of course, that are expiring this coming June 30th of 2024. The first thing I want to say is that the licensure department is planning to send the first notification to the teachers whose licenses are expiring around the first week in December, so that they will, basically will start receiving these regular updates. As everyone wants to know, they have to have, anyone in return renewing a license needs to have a total of 8 renewal credits or 80 hours of staff development completed and posted to their CEU history in My Talent by May 31st of 2024. I have submitted, the specific CEU requirements noted below, and also besides the CEU requirements, employees must have received a rating of at least proficient on their summary evaluation as specified by State Board Policy, LICN 001. So, for grades pre-K through 5, teachers need 3 CEUs in literacy, 3 CEUs in their subject area, and 2 in digital learning. For grades 6 through 12, they need 3 CEUs in subject area, 3 general, and 2 in digital learning. Student services personnel, which includes counselors, media coordinators, social workers, etc., require 3 subject area CEUs, 3 general, and 2 in digital learning. And our administrators would need 3 general, 3 in leadership subject, and 2 in digital learning. And again, we'll be working closely with Dr. Tracy Creech to make sure that our teachers are completing those requirements. Later in the spring, we will also be sending out to all the affected teachers. They will be receiving additional information on how to go into the online licensure system to complete their required actions, which means paying their $35 processing fee and completing the statement of applicant. So, any other questions specific to the CEU summary, the educator can access My Talent transcript, or they can reach out with questions or issues regarding these CEUs to Dr. Tracy Creech at the email address below. Thank you. And now we're going to speak a little bit because, as our talent acquisition team mentioned, we're starting, they're continued, they continue recruiting throughout the year. We are expecting, obviously, here, we go into the Christmas and the holiday season, and we have student teachers that are graduating, and we are ramping up for the hiring season in the spring. So I thought it would be a good idea to talk about, quickly about the requirements for in-state and out-of-state initial licenses. So an in-state initial license is basically for someone who has completed a program or is in the process of completing a program of an approved teacher education program in North Carolina. The initial professional license, or IPL, is valid for a maximum of 3 years. And that IPL may be issued to an individual who has completed a North Carolina EPP, Educator Preparation Program, and has been recommended for licensure by that EPP. Okay. A very important piece, effective July 1st of 2018, all initially licensed teachers for whom a license exam is required must attempt all required content exams in the first year of the license and successfully pass all required exams before or during the third year of the license. And just note that when the initially licensed teacher receives their license from the Department of Public Instruction, and for these licenses, the educator must apply for their own initial license, and these one would be rerouted to the EPP so that they can verify completion of all requirements for that initial license. Then they should be receiving a requirements letter from the Department of Public Instruction, basically outlining if they have any additional testing requirements or at TPA or PPAT. Obviously, the licensure case managers, the licensure department will be ready to answer any questions that those teachers might have. But this is, if you have someone that is a student teacher in your building right now, and this is the type of license that they will be applying for through the Department of Public Instruction. Okay. And now we can move to the out-of-state license. So this one, our talent acquisition team goes out to Pennsylvania, or they go out to Ohio, and they find some amazing candidates. So those people are, then if they receive a recommendation, they will come through our department. We will be looking at those official transcripts. We will be looking at possibly an out-of-state license and other credentials. Remember that without those credentials being in their application packet through Higher Enterprise, we would not be able to make a determination of whether they're eligible for a teaching position or not. But those out-of-state teachers, just like the initially licensed person, will have to apply for their own licenses through the online licensure system of the Department of Public Instruction. The criteria for those is if they may be issued an IPL or initial professional license, if they hold a clear license from another state. And when I say clear, that basically means that they don't have any restrictions on that particular license. They have completed an out-of-state educator preparation program, and that would include if they have gone through an alternative pathway from the state that they're moving from. They would also potentially be subject to testing requirements, just like the in-state teachers. They would receive a requirements letter when that license is issued. In some cases, the out-of-state applicant may have completed their testing already, let's say in Ohio or in Pennsylvania. And if North Carolina DPI determines that those tests are comparable to the tests that are required in North Carolina, they will, and they have 3 or more years of teaching, they would issue them a continuing professional license. Otherwise, they will have that initial license and they would have basically the same requirements of the in-state. They would have to attempt any tests during the first year of that license and pass them by the third. Okay. Do we have Do we have any questions? If so, put them on the chat.
We do not have any questions at this time.
Okay.
Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you.
Next, we have Christine Smith from CMS Teaching Residency.
Good morning. I'm happy to join you on this fall morning. My name is Chris Smith, and I handle licensure for CMS Teaching Residency. So this is our amazing instructional team. And today we're excited to introduce our two newest members, Jawan McKenzie and Shanika Ingram. This team focuses on all instructional work with the current residents in cohort 2023. This includes pre-service training, clinical educators' point of contact and support, cohort meeting content, coursework, and of course, school visits and resident support. So I will be offering office hours regarding alternative licenses, since so many of our teachers are getting licensed through these pathways now. We know that it can be a confusing process, so we want to better support you and the candidates. It's important that you know who is in your building, who in your building is on an alternative license before spring, so that you know the steps that need to be taken before it's too late. Often there are several action steps required to be eligible for the next type license. Waiting until spring to find out what is needed is too late. We want to help you retain teachers if possible, so please log on. We will add additional dates after the holidays if they are needed. It's almost time to start the process for EdTPA, which is short for Ed Teachers Performance Assessment. This assessment measures the skills and knowledge that all teachers need in the classroom. It focuses on 3 tasks: planning, instruction, and assessment. These are very different than the test you take in your content area. This is a portfolio type of assessment rated against rubrics, and it's very similar to national boards. Like I said in the previous slide, EdTPA registration is due 11/14 at the latest. They will have to pay the $300 to complete the registration and to be prepared for the launch of EdTPA on 11/15 at our next cohort meeting. We also host required sessions between December and April where we support them in this process. We've included an FAQ link here and what residents can do now to prepare. Some of you have asked what you can do to support them in this process, so we've included a few bullets here to answer your questions. This slide is just a reminder of all the supports available for our residents. If you want to know more about any of these supports, feel free to reach out and we would be happy to talk more about them. We have a couple of shout outs today. We want to highlight a few of our amazing principals and clinical educators who not only go above and beyond in their buildings, but also work collaboratively with CMS Teaching Residency to support their residents. Principal Daniel Gray at Ridge Road and a few of our clinical educators, Tricia Baptist from Olympic High School, Jennifer Myers and Kiara Eden at Mallard Creek High School, and Chastity Twitty at First Ward. We appreciate you all and look forward to seeing your feedback as well to help us grow. So as you know, the posting for teacher alternative licensure is open and will stay open until May the 1st. This is the same job posting screening for all pathways, but when we review the applications, we provide an enrollment link directly to the ones eligible for CMS Teaching Residency. If you know anyone that might be interested, please send them the link. We really want to get people enrolled early in case they need testing to qualify. We're so excited to be partnering with CPCC for a GPA forgiveness program for those that have a GPA that's less than the required 2.7. Spring training will also be offered again this year, and we have asked the enrollees that are eligible and want to participate in spring to communicate that with you all, since it may take some scheduling and support at the school level. We will be in touch if you have any of these people so that we can support you in that process. Here are some of the updates on our progress so far for the 2024 cohort coming up. As of the first of this week, we were at 98 enrolled, broken down in these content areas. We're very excited about the interest that we're seeing at this point in the process, so keep the referrals coming. We do have a few updates since we were last together. Progress reports were sent out to all current Year 1 residents, so you should have received a copy. We reminded the residents that these are meant to be a tool to monitor progress in meeting program and state requirements. Just as an FYI, some residents do complete all of their testing in the first year, while others use the entire 3 years they have to complete the testing. If they are in elementary, they have the math and the foundations of reading test. If they're in ECGC, they actually have 3 tests, the Praxis 2 Special Ed Core Knowledge, as well as the Foundations of Reading and the Elementary Math Praxis. We've linked the testing guide here for your reference if needed. You will also receive progress reports for Year 2 and Year 3 residents who will still need to complete testing requirements. We only send these progress reports for Year 2 and 3 twice a year. Also, we have emailed all principals and clinical educators our first survey of the year. It was emailed out on 11/7. Please, we would really like to have your feedback back no later than 11/17 so that we can review the feedback to see what changes need to be made now and what we can do to improve the program for the next cohort. We really do appreciate your time and attention to these surveys. Please try to help us out over the next 2 days and return those surveys. Also, the EdTPA registration is due no later than December 1st. We know that $300 is a lot any time of the year, but in order for them to receive all of the handbooks and documents to get started, they need to pay it at the time of their registration, which is very soon. And finally, the instructional team has been busy visiting residents. They have completed 437 visits at their schools so far, not to mention hosting ongoing Zoom sessions and phone calls with our residents and clinical educators. Are there any questions?
There are no questions at this time, but I do want to remind all participants that the link to today's handout with important things that everybody's been referencing is in the question and answer box.
Thank you, Christine. Next, we have Renee Goals and Daria Paul. from Beginning Teacher Development and Support.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Daria Paul. I'm with Beginning Teacher Development and Support. And today, the lovely and talented Renee Goals and I will be sharing some BTD&S updates with you. First, we want to start off by talking about our pre-service training. As a reminder, pre-service training, or PREP, is the state-required training for alternative licensed new hires. Our department is responsible for the 5-day initial training and the continued support during the teacher's first 3 years of teaching. Here's the most up-to-date data for PREP. 173 teachers were hired, trained, and ready to begin teaching their students on August 29th. September was a pretty big month for us. Several schools had 6 or more teachers hired and trained during September, while October added 56 new teachers. Since September, BTD&S's prep team has trained 107 teachers assigned to Title I schools and 42 teachers for non-Title I schools. We are off to a great start so far. We also want to let you know about our YouTube channel, our BTD&S Connect 4. You can see the bit.ly at the bottom center and also in the handout. We encourage you to share this great resource with your schools and subscribe so you'll receive notifications when we add new content, which we do frequently. This channel has 4 playlists, one for beginning teachers, another for mentors, one for mentor contacts, and of course, we have a playlist for school leaders. Right now, we have a variety of PD videos, and you can see some of those options on this slide. But the Connect 4 YouTube channel has so many, many more. So please make sure to explore it and share it with your teachers. We also want to let you know about Beginning Teacher Academy. Beginning Teacher Academy took place this month on October 16th and 17th. We hosted 89 beginning teachers from 39 Title I schools. Participants were selected by principals based on talent they wanted to retain in their buildings. Over the course of the school year, participants will attend 3 days of professional development. The first of which took place in October, with the second and third dates to follow in January and April. Each session focuses on standard 4 and 5 of the teacher evaluation instrument, while growing their professional and personal management. District specialists will be presenting each session to provide quality resources and tools to support their personal and professional growth.
Thanks, Daria. We also want to remind you that our beginning teacher responsibility documents have been updated for this school year. We have 4 documents that are able for access by anyone. We've got the principal responsibilities, the mentor contact responsibilities, mentors, and beginning teacher responsibilities, which are organized into what is required of a beginning teacher in year 1, year 2, and year 3. As you get ready to conduct peer observations, within each of these documents is information about how to manage those and the requirements related to everything. So please be sure whenever you have questions regarding beginning teacher support programming that you remember you can reference these documents, which are also housed on our website and advertised in our newsletters on a monthly basis. As a reminder, formal observation number 1 was due on November 3rd or November 9th for all beginning teachers. Once the first observation has been completed and a post-conference has occurred, the peer observation can be conducted. Peer observations are required of anyone on a comprehensive plan, not just beginning teachers, but any teacher on a comprehensive plan. As a reminder, peer observations must also be 45 minutes in length or a full class period. For additional information on the beginning teacher evaluation cycle, because it is just slightly different for beginning teachers than it is for other teachers, please use the bit.ly on the screen and reach out to us with any questions that you may have. And of course, if for any reason at all an observation or PDP or anything else is not completed by the assigned date on the evaluation timeline, you will need to include a record of activity within My Talent. So for any beginning teacher who has anything completed after a due date, or if a PDP signature was missing, or if a mentor was not paired, a record of activity just explaining why is required in My Talent. And directions for how to do that are at the bit.ly on the screen. If you need assistance in any of that, we're happy to host you and explain how that works. Here are all the different ways that you can keep in touch with us. We're getting ready to do some wonderful holiday giveaways on our social media handles. So please make sure that you are following and your teachers are following so that everybody has an opportunity to win wonderful classroom enhancing supplies.
Thanks, Daria. Thanks, Renee. Do we have any questions for beginning teacher development and support?
No questions at this time.
Awesome information. Now we have Kelly McKinnon from Teacher Leader Pathway.
Good morning, and thank you, Carol. My name is Kelly McKinnon. I am one of the program specialists with the Department of Teacher Leadership, which runs Teacher Leader Pathways. We have a very short update for you all this morning, the first of which is our Teacher Leader Pathway Talent Pool Requalification window. It is now open. Teachers that qualified for the talent pool before the 2020-21 school year and have not applied for a promotion since then must complete the requalification process. As you know, EVA's teacher-specific data just dropped this week, so we have extended the deadline for that until January 31st. Now that EVA's data has been released, we are able to evaluate requalification applications, and we do that on a weekly basis. So if you have teacher leaders in your school, in your building, please remind them that they must complete the requalification application if it is their year, and they must do so by January 31st, 2024. Our second update is that the cohort 11 of Teacher Leader Pathway Schools is now open. If you are a school leader interested in implementing the Teacher Leader Pathway in your school, please submit your school's application using the link on the screen and in your handout. We have 118 schools so far across the district that have added advanced teaching roles to their teams. Please visit our website to learn more about what the Teacher Leader Pathway can do for your staff and students. And when you're ready to apply, please click the link for more information. If you have any questions for us or need to get in touch for any reason, please email the Teacher Leader account or visit our website.
Thank you, Kelly. Do we have any questions for Teacher Leader Pathway?
There are no questions at this time.
Next, we have Stephanie McKinney and Cheryl Munn from Employment and Performance.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining. So during this time of the school year, we began receiving calls from employees and supervisors regarding various issues related to conflict management. So today we're going to spend our time together talking about conflict management and managing issues in your building that can affect how employees show up. So positive workplace culture is one of many strategies to improve overall school performance. When individuals, both students and staff, feel welcome and expected, they are generally more engaged. It creates a positive workplace and has a variety of benefits, including improved productivity, lower staff turnover rates, reduced absenteeism, and it creates a positive sense of belonging and safety for everyone in the building. So two of the most important strategies for managing employees are, number one, creating those positive workspaces and relationships, which builds that positive culture in your building, and managing conflict when it happens. So strategies for establishing those positive workplace cultures is, first of all, creating a welcoming environment where you're celebrating strengths, providing support when needed, making staff feel welcome and included, treating employees, students, and families with respect, and ensuring that staff members are respecting each other as well. Avoid microaggressions, be aware that jokes can sometimes have adverse effect. People's sense of humor is not always welcomed, and it can make others feel uncomfortable. Also, clearly define expectations. We suggest that you front load your information and clearly define next steps using those real examples when you're explaining the expectation that you have for your staff. Also, create a school or departmental handbook, which includes all key board policies that's relevant to your staff. And it needs to be a living document, not something that you just sit up on the shelf. Constantly communicate and enforce expectations. Ensure that that you are utilizing a fair process when addressing concerns and issues. Then hold all employees accountable to the communicated expectations. Make sure that your school, your department, or your department handbook is up to date, and that it also includes desired expectation, include important how-tos, include everything that your employee needs to know to be successful in your school or department, and make it electronically accessible so that employees have access to it at all times. Another strategy is to maintain confidentiality at all times. Newsflash for everyone, that everyone does not need to know everything about everybody. Information should only be shared on a need to know basis. Employees should not feel like that that their leaders are gossiping about them or telling other people about their business. Be mindful that even telling staff the reason a person is absent or on leave without that person's permission is a no-no. And finally, know when to escalate. As leaders, sometimes we like to operate using the Vegas rule. What happens here stays here. That works until it doesn't. So you want to manage and supervise your employees, and that's what we want you to do: manage and supervise your buildings, your departments, but also we want you to let you know, don't let things get out of hand before you reach out for help. Employees sometimes will allege that they are being retaliated against or even working in a hostile environment. These claims should not stop you from supervising or managing an employee who to address their behavior, their performance, or any kind of misconduct issues. And sometimes as leaders, we try to manage conflict through conversation or coaching conversations. But when those strategies don't work, you need to escalate those responses and reach out for support. While managing conflict can be uncomfortable for some, conflict needs to be addressed when it arises in the workplace. And so the first approach to managing conflict is knowing when to get involved as a leader. Sometimes the individuals themselves that are having the conflict can resolve the situation amongst themselves. And we suggest empowering staff to do so when appropriate. Restorative practices, strategies are a good tool to use to repair harm in your building and between staff members. And if you need more information about restorative practices, reach out to Student Discipline Department, and Natasha Smith Valentine is the district's restorative practices person, and she will provide you some help. Be aware of red flags, such as anything that you may already know, any kind of historical knowledge that exists between staff members that may be a rub or friction that might need to be addressed, or ensure that you're not putting people in the same places if they have a issue with each other. And so you want to also look at those warning signs and intervene when appropriate. and then implement some type of preventative measures or strategies to prevent that from getting out of hand. And when the source of the conflict is one individual or a group of individuals, you want to make sure that you address those concerns when it's reported to you and not wait for a long time to cause things to get further out of hand. Our PowerPoint is not on the screen for some reason. Carol?
There's a Carol who's having some technical difficulties at this point.
I'm sorry.
Carol was having technical difficulties.
Give us one moment. We'll have it back up on the screen in a second.
Okay, thanks. And so sometimes conflict is a result of some other extenuating factors that would need support using some other resources. Conflict can be a result of a trauma. It can be a result of an addiction, a mental health crisis, an illness, or a life crisis, such as the death of a loved one or a divorce. Sometimes these extenuating factors are not overt or obvious. It's usually underlying behaviors that will show up, like increased absenteeism, being tardy to work, come to work disheveled, the person's judgment or reasoning may be off, or they may experience mood swings, and you may observe that in them. And these are just a few of the things that you may see that's underlining, and it could just be them having issues with some extenuating factors. If the employees are displaying erratic behavior, immediately reach out for support. It could be an indication that that individual is under the influence. And if you suspect that that employee is under the influence, then you want to contact ER immediately for support. Other resources that can be offered to the employee who may be experiencing some of these extenuating factors would be EAP, Aspire. Maybe they might need to take a leave of absence, or they might need an accommodation to be able to support them. But again, if you have have an employee that's experiencing any of these behaviors, you'll want to reach out to HR for support. And so the question is, when do you need permission? And so, next slide. So you need permission when there's special cases. For example, we understand that you are the administrator or the leader of your department, and we want you to be empowered to lead in your areas. However, you do need permission for special cases, and 3 of those cases are outlined on the screen. Send an employee home, if an employee needs to be drug or alcohol tested, or if the employee needs an accommodation that's going to be a long-term and a significant accommodation that's impacting or taking away with duty responsibilities. So you would need to reach out to the accommodations department before you implement accommodations. You need to reach out to ER if you're going to send a person home or either if they need a drug test. So strategies and best practices for managing conflict. First and foremost, withhold your own judgment and check your biases so your biases aren't showing up in the way that you handle the situation. And make sure that you seek to understand both sides. And also, if you're going to have a mediation conversation, make sure you're prepared for that meeting before the meeting starts, so that you go in with the agenda that is going to be effective for that particular situation. And also, again, use restorative practices strategies when applicable. And again, reach out to student discipline to get more information on that. Implement your interim measures when needed and follow up to make sure that that what you put in place is still working. And then also maintain confidentiality and ask for help when you need it. And so the role of human capital management is to support all employees. So we support with the hiring and retaining of staff. We support with performance management issues. We support with conflict between employees and supervisors or employees and employees. And we also support with mediation. So if you need support, please reach out to your human capital partner, and we are here to assist you and provide you with the support that you need. Next slide, please. And you see your human capital partners listed by learning community. And again, we're here to help.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Do we have any questions for this team?
There are no questions. Thank you.
Next, we have Cheryl Munn from Employment and Performance.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cheryl Munn. I'm the Director of Employment and Performance, and today we're going to discuss PCLs and corrective action and Power BI. Let's start with a few announcements. December the 5th, yes, December the 5th is the late hire cutoff date for this year. So any employees hired and licensed support staff that are hired from December the 6th through February 29th should be coded as end of year and on the late hire evaluation plan. They're on the late hire evaluation plan. They have to complete a goal and have one observation. If their start date is December the 5th, then they will be on the regular evaluation plan. So anyone hired after December the 5th, meaning December 6th, they should be coded as end of year. So some upcoming dates: December 8th, abbreviated observation 1 and super observations are due. January 19th, observation 2 is due. PDP mid-year review is due. And PCLs should be generated for employees with performance issues. Hence the reason why we are having this discussion today on PCLs. By January the 19th, you should also request a peer observation for any licensed support staff member on the standard plan with performance issues. You can request a peer observation for those employees. A self-assessment and the initial review is due for your late hire plans. And by January 26th, peer observations are due for employees on comprehensive plan. And in January, I will review the peer observation process. All right, just a few updates and numbers to give you in regards to observation 1. So observation 1, as of the completion date for the PDP, beginning of year, and observation 1, we had 57% at 100% completion. This is out of 5,941 observations, 3,408 of them were complete. So that's a total of 57% for the district, which is pretty good at this point. Observation 1 completion, just observation 1, is at 64% for the district. Out of 5,941 observations, 3,821 were complete at the time of this report. We know that you are still working on the observation 1 and your super observations, and we ask that you keep working hard and getting through it. PCLs. Everyone on this call is familiar with PCLs, with the performance counseling letter, unless you are new to CMS. And if you are new to CMS, this is also the equivalent of what some people would call an action plan. But this is our district's tool that we use to document performance. The letter can be found on the performance management website, and we have a cute little QR code that we use to get for you to get to that site. Key components. Key components of the PCL, you first want to identify the standards and the elements where the performance is rated below proficient. List the specific concerns, list your support provided. To date, key, if it's not previously documented. You may list any support that has been provided for that particular standard or element. List the general expectation moving forward. What are your expectations for improvement? Also include the support that you, the school, will be providing to the teacher. Here's some ideas. You all know, if you haven't read ahead of me, you know a book study is in here somewhere. I say it every time. That's my favorite. All right. Ideas for plan of support. Teacher or admin arrange to be videotaped. And then the teacher and the admin will sit down and review it and rate that teacher's performance. The teacher can observe other high-performing teachers, either in the building or outside the building, meaning at another school. And then have the teacher to complete a reflection. Here it comes. Sometimes teachers are asked to read a book or a portion of the book and reflect on the practices that they will include in the instructional practices. I say this all the time. Do not ask your teachers to read a book or a portion of the book that you are not familiar with. Make sure that you are familiar with that book as well. More ideas. Observe other teachers at the employee school or offsite. Professional development. Weekly lesson plan for written feedback. Again, if you don't have the capacity to review those lesson plans weekly, do not ask them to turn them into you weekly, or pull in someone else to help you review that, because if you want them to turn it in weekly, you have to make sure you get that feedback back to them in a timely manner. And if they're on a monitored or a directed PDP, make sure that's referenced in the PCL. All right, the PCL is for instructional employees, all instructional staff. Now we're going to look at the corrective action plan, which is for all other staff members. So the PCL is for instructional staff, corrective action plan, or the corrective action form is for all other staff. On this plan, you're going to indicate the date, the incident, or the policy violation. So if it's a specific incident that they're using this to document, that is fine. That's a one-time corrective action. They're gonna identify a specific incident. But if the plan is being implemented as a result of an ongoing performance concern, include the date of the last conference. That's very important, as I've just been notified that some departments are using this to identify a specific incident, which is fine. You also want to include the effective date of the corrective action. This is the date that you conference with the employee. The expiration date of the corrective action, 90 days. First checkpoint meeting should be within the first 30 days. and the frequency of the checkpoint meetings, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. Make sure you have the capacity to conduct these checkpoint meetings. If you say weekly, you should be there and prepared to have that meeting every week. Even if the employee is not, you should be there and available, ready to have that meeting. Okay, here are the details of the corrective action. Supporting evidence. Make sure you include any evidence that is relevant to the situation. This is important. Make sure you include any evidence that's relevant. Written warnings, smart find reports, emails, memos, information that's relevant. Indicate the reason for the corrective action and why, what incident led up to this. This is very important, any previous discussions, because what will happen is the employee will say, I've never heard this before. This is my first time hearing this. And they will contact us or the human capital partners or my team to say they've never heard of this before and this is their first time. And then we will reach out to you and you will say, oh no, I've talked with them several times. Here are the emails to follow it up. So make sure that it is not the first time the employee is hearing about anything that you include in the corrective action. The verbal warning, supporting evidence related, and that could be an email sent to the employee after the verbal conversation. You're going to list your performance expectations. What do you expect to see moving forward? And then the supervisor comments to the assigned reviewers. I said this before, checkpoint meetings. Make sure you have the capacity to hold it weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, mainly weekly. If you're going to meet with them weekly, make sure you are there and available to meet. Here's the meeting guidelines. During that checkpoint meeting, the checkpoint meeting in the beginning should be facilitated by the employee. Let the employee tell you what they have done up to that point, what they have accomplished, go through each of your expectations, and let the employee explain what they have completed up to the point of the meeting. Then you're going to talk about the current overall performance, and you're going to review that as well. It's important to remember, of course, the goal of the PCL or the corrective action. And remember, it is let me say that. It's to improve performance, not document out. The goal always is to improve performance, not document out. Okay, in the meeting, you're also going to discuss any concerns. This may include absenteeism, following work rules, safety of students, anything that may have come up from the time the PCL or corrective action was put in place up until that checkpoint meeting that was not covered. So if there's some new things that has happened, include that and discuss that. Discuss the support that has been provided. This can include coverage so that they could observe another employee, feedback on the lesson, co-teaching or modeling, discuss any support that has been provided from the school or during this process. Then capture a summary of the discussion. Indicate if there's any further action needed. Indicate if they are right on track. But here is where you're going to document what needs to happen moving forward. And then once the final checkpoint meeting has been concluded and documented, you, the supervisor, you will complete the completion step in My Talent. The completion step does not mean that the person has performed proficiently and they have completed everything in the performance counseling letter. It just means that no further action will be taken with this one, this performance counseling letter. Right, moving to Power BI. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Power BI simply because I will be conducting separate trainings on Power BI for all new principals or principals who have never gone through the training. Most of you here have probably been in Power BI and you're used to it. So I'm going to not spend a lot of time on this, but Power BI is where we provide our customized reports for observations, and which is only what I'm going to discuss today is observations, but we also know that they have staffing and vacancy information in there, and our video, safe school video information is there now as well. But today we're just going to talk about observation data. Let me go. Next slide. Here, this tells you how to get into Power BI. You're going to go to app.powerbi.com, and if you're logged in, your credentials will automatically log you in, and only principals have access to the instructional side. Next slide. You're going to go to apps after you log in. Keep going. To access reports, you're going to go to principals. And once you go into principals, this is exactly what you will see on the left side: observation data, attendance PCL summary, observation 1 completion report, and then it'll say observation 2, observation 3. We no longer have visuals in Power BI. Okay, in Power BI, you will see your human capital report. This is designed to support the conversations that you're going to have with human capital partners, principals, and your school level leadership around the current performance and strategic planning. Power BI is not where you go and just print off your completion reports and look at it and say, we are right on track. No, we want you to use Power BI to be very strategic in determining next steps and how you're going to provide support to your staff. And did I say that Power BI is real time? So if you go into Power BI right now, you're going to see your real time data as to where you are at this point for observation 1 or observation 2. Okay, the human capital partners also have access, and district leaders also have access to Power BI. Your human capital partners will be reaching out to you to discuss any employees who are considered performance concerns based on their evaluation data, to discuss the support that's being put in place for those employees. Here you can select which evaluation type you want to view. Okay, in the observation data, you will have an overall score, as you can see here in the red. The overall score is determined by the number of developing ratings that an employee has. So you will see -25. That means they have 25 developing ratings. Then you will also see a column that says PCL suggested. We set it up so that if an employee on a standard or comprehensive plan has 8 or more developing, this PCL suggested will be generated. Notice it says suggested. If the employee is on an abbreviated plan and they have 4 or more developing, PCL suggested will generate as well. The proficient rating and above is not calculated because we want to decrease masking the performance deficiencies. So proficient, accomplished, and distinguished, we can talk about on the next slide. Here, the highly effective teacher performance is highlighted in both accomplished and distinguished columns. So they are separate columns for the accomplished and distinguished numbers. That's all. All right, this is the part you guys love, love, love. You love it so much that you rely on this attendance column for your daily attendance, which is fine. But here, this is what I want you to remember about attendance. Your attendance will not populate. Nothing will populate in Power BI until an evaluation is completed. I get calls all the time that the attendance section is not right, it's not listed, all my employees are not showing because you have not completed an observation. Once you complete an observation, then the attendance information will populate. Well, all information will populate. You see attendance letters suggested. If an employee has 8 or more absences, it doesn't matter if it's sick leave, extended sick leave, PD, 8 or more total, then this attendance letter suggested, keyworded suggested, will populate, which will trigger you to have a conversation with them regarding their attendance. Also on this module, you will see PCL and summary. Everyone in your building that's on a PCL will be listed. And then at the bottom, the summary data, which includes their summative evaluation data and their EVAS. Good news, we received EVAS data today. This morning, it was in my mailbox. So we're going to work to get the new EVAS data uploaded into Power BI as soon as possible. So that's where the strategic planning comes into place, because once you see that data, then you'll start looking at summative data and EVAS data to make those correlations and look for patterns and things that stand out. Okay, next slide. Completion report. I put this last on purpose because I don't want Power BI to be about a completion report. Although you have the capacity to run completion reports for all of your completed observations, which is the total number, total required, total missing. You can run a completion report for all of your unsigned observations, which also means they could be not locked. And lastly, you can run a report for your required observations that have not been started yet. And what's most important is Power BI and My Talent are synced. So the information from Power BI comes from My Talent. And Power BI only has instructional data. So only teacher observations are in Power BI, not counselor, facilitator, psychologist, all of those other positions you will receive on the completion report from performance management, which should be coming out this week. Here's an example of the completion report in Power BI, well, of what you will see in Power BI before running the report. Next slide. Here's an example of the unlocked section and not started. I intentionally found one without any names, so because but unlocked observation and not started. That's an example of what that looks like in Power BI. Next. So guiding questions. Remember I said we want you to use Power BI to plan strategically and look at outliers and look at things that need to be improved or ways you can improve in the evaluation process and the performance management in your building. So what you're going to look for is look for consistency among your principals, assistant principal, and deans. See if the ratings are off or there is a need to calibrate. You're also going to look at what type of support has been provided to those teachers that are performing below minimum performance expectations. That's what your human capital partners are going to reach out to you to discuss. So you can start looking at that data now. Lastly, you want to look at is your teacher on track to have their license renewed based on their current observations? You can be very proactive and look at that information now at the beginning of the year so you can see where you need to get them to be in order to renew their license. Then you can look at also people who are on a PCL, look at their summative ratings, look at their EVAS data to see what the concern is, or even if they should be on a PCL based on what you're seeing and what you know about the employee as a whole. Okay, next slide. All right, I'm at the end. If you have any questions, I am Cheryl Munn, Director. You have my mobile number. And Eleanor Reale is all things My Talent. She's also the person behind the performance management emails, and she is my project manager. You may also reach out to her if you have any questions at this time or anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. That wraps up the November edition of the HR webinar. If you have any further questions, for employment performance or other content, please enter them in the Q&A or connect with our subject matter experts after the session. Find all referenced links and contact details in the provided handout. Our next webinar is scheduled for January the 11th, 2024, hosted via Microsoft Teams. The registration link is available in the handout. Thank you for being with us today and have a wonderful day.